All right, Dexter, looks like we're started, so go ahead and kick things off.
Okay. Hello and welcome to the Automated Distributed Global User Community Webcast, and we're off. I'm going to start off as always and tell you about who won the raffle. Then we're going to turn it over to Mark Warren, and he's going to give us his update. And then for our feature presentation, we have not one but two presenters. We have Mike Woods and Justin Hubbard, and they're going to be presenting on the new features of 11.3.6 SP1, also the EEM audit tool, and Justin is going to give us a hands-on demo or a demo of the migration assistant. Now, our winner for last webcast of our raffle was Harvey Cantor of Integration Inc., and he's been a member since May of 2010, and he won a $100 gift certificate in U.S. currency for Amazon.com, and he resides in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So in Canadian money, he actually won a little over $122 in Canadian money. So congratulations, Harvey, and let me turn it over to Mark at this time. You're up, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I believe Dexter, Lynn, you're going to present. I'm having issues with my PC, so I asked Lynn to present for me.
Oh, okay.
Lynn, you should have control. So thank you all for joining today. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their schedule. So I appreciate it. With that being said, you can skip the disclaimer. We have to place these in each and every presentation we do so everybody understands. Today's topics that we'll take a look at and cover very quickly, IT orchestration updates. And just so all of you are aware, IT orchestration now encompasses workload automation, event management, output management, and data transfer. So we'll be talking about some updates we've made in this area, what's the application economy and its impacts, and then we'll talk about customer automation needs in the application economy, and then I'll open it up for any questions. So next slide, please. First thing I want to announce today is Nicole Fagan is now joining the product management team here for workload. Actually, for IT orchestration, I'm sorry. And she will be a senior director of product management. I will continue to have the product managers. Nicole will now take over the product owners, which will encompass many different teams and many different responsibilities. She'll maintain SWAT with Mike Woods and Nitin Pandey and Lee Peterson, as well as we'll continue to grow that team as well. Sharita Bardem is now the product manager for DE and AE. It's located in Plano. So I want to make sure we get those out. And I will make sure I get an email out to everyone on the call today to make sure they have these email addresses if they already don't. So today, what's the biggest issue we see in the digital application world? And it really boils down to, customers thinking like technology companies. And because of that, more and more companies are looking at it from an aspect, actually, we're a software company now. If you look at some of the larger environments, such as the JP Morgan Chase, a couple of others, that their environments are so large that they actually have more developers on staff than companies such as Google or Amazon. They're very, very large because each company is trying to get ahead in this digital space. So you look at Nike, Amazon, and Tesco, they're all very, very big in the digital world. And if you look at the Gartner comment, it's time to act on digital business. And that's straight from Gartner. And when you look at that, every company is looking at it. How can we do this? How can we be faster? What is the urgency that we need to move? So with that being said, next slide. how CA sees it, we went out and we actually did a survey. Manson Bourne did the survey for us last year. And when we look at it, 44% of the customers are saying that within their own organization it's causing disruption with the application economy. So when you look at it, it's driving us businesses to increase investments by 25%. It's obtaining new skills through software company acquisitions and deliver to customer applications each year. You know, and when you stop and think about this, I don't know if those of you have a discovery card. But now, as an example, now with your discovery card, you can actually turn your card on and off as you want. So to prevent fraud, Discoveries came up with a mobile app, which you actually log in just like any account, and you can turn your card on and off as needed. Very, very unique and will prevent identity theft or, at the same time, credit card fraud. So this is talking about how the application economy is driving them quicker. You stop and realize, well, Visa will be next, American Express, all the corporate cards will start following that, as well as individual cards. With that being said, next slide, please. We're going to have to figure out how we deliver to the application economy. So automation in the application economy, when you look at it, we can look at DevOps, release automation. You know, customer use cases is basically provisioning and placement of automations. Then you look at the use cases for process, data, and workload. And within these capabilities, you see that CE has a release automation with the application provisioning, VM provisioning, and cloud provisioning. Now, when we look at IT orchestration, where do we play? Well, process automation, event and response, and runbook. When you look at IT process automation, Ops MVS running on the mainframe, we can now handle these process automation roles. Data automation. How do we handle data automation? Well, we have XCOM, we have FTPs, we have various ETLs, output management and delivery, big data with advanced integrations. And then we look at workload. We're going to have to look at SaaS automation, Salesforce, AI, and Workday AI. We'll continue to invest in DB, DW, BI automations, ERPs with SAP, Oracle integrations. And then device and operating systems automation. You know, I was meeting with one customer this week, and they explained to us how now they've actually started rebooting their systems using AutoSys. They've written scripts and so forth to do all of that. And basically it's taking their outage windows somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000% savings in downtimes by the amount of times that they figured it was taking them to reboot and so forth, and all the manual processes they were going through. The last of this is the customer ecosystem. You know, the infrastructures with VM instances, LPARs, cloud instances, application instances. The business services, the applications, and the SaaS services and the governance that's associated with that. And with that being said, you know, the things that we're looking at as an example with R12 of AutoSys, you know, one of the big enhancements with R12 is going to be the 64-bit. This is going to bring us in line with all the other applications at the same time, update the databases, drivers, and so forth. But the thing I wanted to point out to the team was, you know, we have to stop looking at each individual application and segmenting them. To do so, I've asked Sridhar to work with Nicole and merge the WCC and the AutoSys ideation site. So if you signed up, we posted yesterday, Nicole posted that we're accepting and we're looking at the ideation site for R12. Okay, because we need to make sure that we pull those in to this next release. much like we did with the latest service pack of AutoSys with SP1, where we included the storage monitoring and the SNMP traps and so forth. And we'll continue to pull those in, but over the next 2 weeks, we need to make sure everybody's voting on what they want to see in R12, because that is where, other than 64-bit, there's a couple of other items, but technical debt that we need to take care of. But the rest of the items will come from the ideation communities. So please make sure you vote. And again, WCC and AutoSys, we've asked to merge together so you don't have to go to 2 different places, and realistically that should be considered one product, not 2 anyway. I must align the 2 of those products and make sure they're delivered at the appropriate time. I don't want to deliver one of AutoSys and one of WCC and then we get right back where we were 2 years ago. And I want to make sure we never go back there. So I will open this up for questions real quick. I know we've got a busy schedule today.
Yeah, if anybody has a question, please just put it in the Q&A within the WebEx, and Mark and the team can answer.
Any concerns with AutoSys right now that I see? What will happen with WCC 11.4 from David? David, to answer your question, what do you mean? I'm not sure I understand that question, but I'll give you my best shot here. 11.4 is downloadable today on the website, the WCC homepage. We'll continue to invest in WCC. We'll continue to grow that product if that's what you're asking. Steve, since you want WCC and AutoSys 1, it's in operative. I can't read it, but you'll fix the extended command line needed for login to app server for ECIL calls. It just use. Okay.
So, Mark, I think I may know what that one is. So in 11.3.6, when you're using EAM, the security context of your command will be your logged on WCC user. It will not require a individual user ID and password on the application server machine any longer. So if that answers your question, just let me know.
Okay.
There was actually a question before that one from Chris Trinidad. How does EEM figure in with the AE and WCC merge?
It remains the same. It's a product that we'll continue to use and continue to exploit for security processing. And then let's see, John. Our IXP and WC functionality is being merged. We're migrating from IXP to WCC, and there are functionality gaps in search and monitoring. We're continuing to improve the gaps between the 2 products. Please, if I will have Sridhar look at that and identify those and make sure we get those into WCC as well. But I believe with the new 11.4, they're closer together. What about the growth for IXP? Do not use WCC. So today, we'll continue to support IXP. We'll do some minor enhancements, job types and so forth. We'll continue to keep it updated. But as far as integration with EAM or anything of that nature, not today. That's why people like IXP, is because it does not have all the other requirements around it that WCC does have. But we'll continue to support it and continue to grow it from a functional standpoint by adding job types as we move forward. The future for IXP, I believe I've answered. We will keep it going forward. Have a roadmap for it. Again, you can send me an email. It's mark.warren@ca.com. And I'll be glad to supply that to you and show you what we're doing with IXP from a standpoint, but it continues to grow. So strategically, the future is WCC, right? Correct. Right now, today, as we sit here, that is true. Just so everybody's aware, I mean, we want a nice UI. CAM's going to be integrated in with it. So will it always be called WCC? Good chance it will be, but I want to make sure everybody understands, you know, we have CAM, we have iDash, we have all these moving UIs. We will have a common set of UIs, dashboards that we can move forward with. Let's see what else we have. Yes. Are you looking at incremental improvements in WCC usability? Absolutely. So if you want to send me something, I will be more than happy, Philippe, to discuss that with you and see where the shortcomings are. I'm in constant contact with them on a daily basis. Need a way to tell who's logged in to WCC and kill any sessions? Is that going to be a possibility soon? I believe that is now in 11.4. Now shows who's logged on, how long they've been logged on, and so forth.
Hey, Mark, yeah, we got a lot of content to get to. Can we suspend the questions for now and move on to Mike Woods?
Sure. Yeah, and if Mike finishes, then we can continue this. I appreciate it. Chris, everybody, you have my email. Please email me, and I'll be glad to deal with it one-on-one with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. And Mike, it's yours.
All right, thank you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so Dexter asked me to put together a little presentation, and topic that we chose was the new enhancements put into 11.3.6 Service Pack 1. And as part of that, there's also a new EEM audit tool that's shipped as part of on the Common Services CD as well. So as Mark kind of mentioned, besides the patches and maintenance that's normally included with the Service Pack, they did go into the ideation site and pick a couple of the items that were the highest vote getters and implement them in this version as well. So we'll just kind of go through some of them, and then I'll hand it off to Justin to do the migration assistant. Okay, first one up is the new purge attribute in the configuration. So the idea here is to kind of self-clean the AutoSys logs for the AS server and also the event daemon. So basically, it's an update to the log rollover setting in the config file, and then after the time that you put in there, put a comma, and then the word purge, and then the number of days that you want to keep on your system. And at midnight, whenever it does the log rollover, it'll automatically purge anything older than whatever you have set in there. And the agent side, the system agent is also self-cleaning as well. So pretty much the whole product is nice and clean now. All right. Next, we added a couple of new alarms. First, the DB maint has been added as an alarm failure. In the past, DB maint would run as a script. If any of those functions in there failed, there would be really no notification sent out. You'd have to go into the DB maint out file and take a look for any errors in there. So since it's such an important function to keep that database nice and trim, the DB-main failure alarm has been sent or created. It will now send out a failure. One distinction here, if you're running the DB-main as a separate job, then that will not send a failure out. It's only when it's automatically scheduled through the scheduler. Okay, next. New alarm sent when the agent starts noticing that it's running low on disk space. So the alarm name is machine_disk threshold, and we'll get to it in a couple of slides, but the agent will now, can send out messages when it's running low on disk space, and there's 3 types of notifications that you'll get, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Okay, some kind of enhancements more on kind of the usability and or troubleshooting and recovery side. So first, the scripts on Unix have been included to add the ulimit, so core files will be automatically enabled. In the past, problem happens, but there's no core file to kind of correlate whatever happened. So nobody likes to hear the answer, well, we need a core file to troubleshoot. We have to wait for the problem to happen again. So we're trying to be a little bit more proactive and actually just enable the core files when the product actually starts up. Okay, next, machine status. So there's a new machine status being added called blocked, which will kind of describe when the agent has said, I don't have enough disk space, and I'm going to just block any new job requests from coming in. So the jobs will go into a pending machine status, but you'll know why it's actually not accepting any jobs. So it's not that the agent is down yet, but it went into a block status and just doesn't have enough disk space to really handle the load. Okay, another one for those running dual database, the old auto BCP, if you've got a very large database, could take quite a large time to actually sync up the two databases. So if you're running Oracle, we're now taking advantage of the Oracle data pump functionality. So this is a new feature within Oracle, and instead of just doing our normal auto BCP process, we've changed the Perl script to take into account this new facility. If you're not running 11.3.6, there actually is a tech doc on how to convert your current auto BCP to use the auto pump as well. So you don't have to be at this release to take advantage of it. This is really more that the default now will be to use the data pump. Okay, there's also a new job attribute now as well called status. And basically the idea is that when you insert a job, you can put that job into the status of your choice. And basically all the terminal statuses are accepted, so failure, inactive, on hold, and so on. So what that looks like is you just add a status attribute in your GIL. So in my example here, I put it on no exec. And after I insert it, if I do an auto wrap on it, you can see that it's in no exec stats. So this is nice when you're trying to insert a large set of GIL, but you don't want it to maybe kick off immediately. So you could put them all on hold or on ice or no exec or whatever status you really want to put it in to prevent it from kicking off automatically. Okay, so a little bit more on the disk thresholds on the agent side. So the agent has actually had this capability to send SNMP traps out to the manager of your choice, and just really 3 settings here. The first one is a warning, and it'll continue to run and accept a new job request. And the default setting in there is 21 meg. And the agent.parm.text setting is the one that's in bold there, the agent.resource.mon threshold disk warning and .notice. The next level of criticality is the severe warning. So at this level, and again, the default is now 20 meg of available space, the agent actually stops accepting new job requests until that disk space is greater than the setting. And then finally, the last setting in there is the critical warning, which has a default of 10 meg. And at this point, the agent actually shuts down gracefully and actually sends, again, the message out to the manager that it's going down. So these are all documented in the agent implementation guide, if you want any more detail on it. In practice, what you'll see is when the threshold is exceeded, you'll see a message on the top there. It's in the red there. You know, the agent has explicitly rejected the communication. It's placing it into a blocked state. That then sends out the alarm that we talked about before, that the machine disk threshold has been exceeded. And then again in the red there, you can see that the status is blocked on that one. So at this point, if you do an order app-m, you'll see that it's in a blocked status. And it also kind of gives you, what the current setting is and what the threshold is as well. Okay, so here's that order rep-m. So I can see that that machine now is in a blocked status. So it's not offline, it's not online or even unqualified, but it's in a blocked status. So that's a brand new status at this release. All right. So those are the main new features. There are a couple of other minor ones, but just kind of picked the major ones for the webcast today. But I want to also kind of talk about the new EAM audit tool. So in 8.4, EAM had a tab in there for reports, and it basically used the Event Log Manager or CELM utility to generate those reports. Now, it had some nice reports that were defaults, but one of the limitations was that it wasn't available for printing reports or even automating the reports. So in the R12 version of EEM, we're now kind of supplying our own version of this utility. Now it is on the Common Services DVD, so it's not part of the AutoSys or WCC image. It is on that Common Services, which is where you get EAM as well. It is compatible with EAM R12 and above. So if you're running 11.3.5, that came with 12.0. 11.3.6 came with 12.5.1. This is backward compatible to R12. So even if you're currently running 11.3.5, you can still download this from the 11.3.6 media and use it against your existing 11.3.5 or 12.0 EEM. Now the way it's implemented is that it actually kind of reads the audit.log file, which is automatically generated by EAM, and then kind of puts it into a database. So currently we're supporting Oracle, SQL, Sybase, and there's also kind of a black box embedded database if you want to use that. H2 is the database type. So that gets imported into the database, and then there's a client side where you kind of generate the reports from, and you tell it, what kind of reports that you want to generate. So the way it's implemented is the server side gets installed on wherever EAM is installed. Now, if you've configured it with multi-write failover, you can also point them all to the same database. So no matter what database or EEM you're currently actively using, all the events get sent to the same database, so the reports have all the data in there, which again is kind of an improvement over the 8.4 implementation of the ELM. What's also kind of nice is we also use the JDBC connection. So if your EAM's installed on Linux, but you want to use a SQL Server database, go ahead, you can do that, no problem. Just configure it with the port hostname, database type, and you can send the events over to your SQL Server. All right, so I generated a couple of example reports. The first one is just the failed actions that have been taken. So at the very top of the report, it'll tell you the table that it's going against. So there's 3 types that will show: authorization, authentication, and administration type events. The columns that I want to put into the report, and these are all things I just put on the command line, and then the filters that you want to put in there. So I put all the failures, and I had a large number of EGM exec identities in there that I wanted to exclude. So I can just do a comma delimited list of different filters on there. And then finally, I can give it a sort order as well. So I use the date and time, ASC for sending. So on the report itself, I've got the method here, which is typically going to be authorized with session. Date, time, the client name. So this is really which application server actually made the request. So if I have multiple application servers, I can see where that request is coming from. Again, the error code, which is actually part of my filter, the EE not allowed, and then the source. So I've got some that came from WCC, and then some that came from workload automation. And the next column that I chose was the resource name. So this follows the format of the action. So command line console is the action on this one. A little bit further down, I can see for the AutoSys one, read is the action I required. AS list is the resource class, so the type of object that I'm trying to check. And then finally, the resource name, so instance.autorep for this case. I could also do things, show me all the events that the AutoSys user ID did. So all the events that are currently configured will show up in this report as well. Or I could even do it based on the resource name, so I can see who's trying to touch a particular resource. All done very simply. Just change the filters on your command line. Okay. Next type of report is administrative. So these types of reports can do things like who's making changes to policies, if you're using the local EAM user store, who's modifying users, or if you're using an LDAP, who's making changes to application user information. So in this example here, I've got, I can tell these are policy changes here. And it basically tells me what the type of the name of the policy is. So this is our product line community example here. Cycle for cycle calendars. And here's a job policy change as well. So those are SO inserts, which means I've inserted them. I've also got, I deleted a policy here. So I deleted a policy called Mic1. And I've got to modify down here as well. So this one actually created a new I-R12 policy in here. And then finally, we have some, I went out of order there. Should have done authentication first. Oops. So one of the common requests that we get is, who's been logging on to WCC? So as you can tell, I usually use EGM Commander as my my login. I've also got some EEM logins in here as well. I didn't filter on WCC specifically. And then have a user called superuser, and so on. There's Wumio4, EGM operator, and EGM scheduler as well. So I can tell when they actually logged on. So I've been showing you PDF files. You can also export it into a CBS file as well, and then import it into an Excel. So you have a couple of different formats to choose from. All right. Justin, I'm going to pass control over to you.
Well, actually, can you, that's fine. I was gonna say
okay, you want me to just do the slides?
Yeah, if that's all right.
No problem.
Let me know when you're ready. So thank you, everyone, for sitting in on this. My name is Justin Hubbard. I'm one of the developers involved with the Upgrade Assistant project. The Upgrade Assistant is a tool that was designed to help customers move off of 4.5.1 and an R11 and onto 11.3.5 and 11.3.6 SB1. It works on the concept of packages, which essentially the user will, and you'll see I'm actually going to do a live demo of this, but the user will select a group of jobs. It doesn't have to be every job in a source environment. The Upgrade Assistant will then retrieve all the relevant information regarding that job, including the different utilities it uses, different calendars, machines, globals, whatever it may be that job is using. All the data will then be analyzed, and any problems or concerns will be presented to the user. And then finally, the data can be migrated into the target 11.3.5, 6, or 6 SP1 environment. Let me see here. When we define the elements into the target environment, they are all set onto a no exec or on ice status if it's going into 11.3.5 or 11.3.6. I meant to add a bullet here. I guess I forgot to. If you're moving into 11.3.6 SP1, we now utilize the status attribute, and you can also migrate the current statuses of the jobs, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Very important to note, though, is that the Upgrade Assistant does not make any changes at any time to the source environment. So you can modify GIL and make changes and see how what effects the changes have within the Upgrade Assistant before migration, and nothing will be affected on the source that can still be running. When you migrate into the target environment, that's when you need to have a plan for your source environment, particularly if you're migrating current statuses, because we're not stopping those jobs on the source for you. So you need to make sure that that plan has been accounted for. Next slide, Mike. This is just a comparison. The Data Mover is another tool that's been used for migrations. The Upgrade Assistant isn't meant to be a replacement for the Data Mover. We've had many customers that have preferred the approach of the Data Mover versus the Upgrade Assistant. We've also had customers that have used them together. So it's not meant to be a replacement. This is just a comparison of what is involved here. And as you can see on the left, the Upgrade Assistant versus the Data Mover supports a subset approach versus a big bang approach. You can do every job with the Upgrade Assistant, but it also allows for subsets of jobs to be migrated at a time. Both copy calendars, machines, globals. The Upgrade Assistant allows the user to define machines if they're, particularly from 451, if there's an actual machine definition in 451, you can define that before migration. The Upgrade Assistant does copy Windows credentials and converts them to the specific encryption type into the target environment, so you don't have to worry about that. What the Upgrade Assistant does not copy is history, events, monitors and browsers, overrides, time zones, and external instance definitions. So those are all things that would have to be done separately. The Upgrade Assistant does focus on one instance at a time. You will be made aware of external instance dependencies. Will also provide up and downstream affected jobs for external instances. We'll provide that data to you so you know that while you're migrating instance ABC, job X and XYZ may be affected by your migration, but it's not handling the external instance dependencies. That will have to be done separately. You can also utilize Perl scripts in with the Upgrade Assistant. Maybe you know there's a common problem you want to change, or you're changing your naming standards for your jobs and you want to incorporate that against all of your jobs. You can write a Perl script, and before the Upgrade Assistant syntax checks any of the data, it will apply your Perl script just like, and the format it expects is the same as the auto rep report. And finally, the Upgrade Assistant supports is using Jill to do the majority of the migration and the other AutoSys utilities, so it's database independent. You can be moving from SQL Server to Oracle or whatever you choose, and I'll cover that in the demo as well. And Mike, are there any more slides after that? All right, so Mike, if you have, if you can pass me presenter.
Okay, you should be getting control.
All right. So, can everyone see? This is the front page of the Upgrade Assistant, what you can see here. It's just a panel of the packages that have already been created. I created some sample packages prior to the demo just to get a feel of what's available. The basic material that's provided for the packages is what was the package name, where there's any descriptions for it, what is the current package state, how far along in the process has the package been progressed, the source and target environments, and the dates created, updated, or migrated. When we go to create a package, you'll be presented with a screen to fill in some information about the source and target environment. So I'm just going to create a package name demo, and I'll give it a description. You can see there are two modes here, analysis mode and migrate mode. Analysis mode is the same as migrate mode up until the point of migration. It doesn't require having the target client installed. So the analysis mode, you can actually go in before setting up your target environment and just look at the source environment and get a feel for the number of errors and warnings that have been discovered by the Upgrade Assistant, as well as export those reports and provide those to your end users so that you can start prepping for the migration before the target environment is already set up. I'm going to do a package in migrate mode for the demo, and this is my source database environment that I'm going to be filling in. It's an Oracle environment, and it's R11. We do have to provide the target database credentials if we are actually migrating, as well as the Upgrade Assistant needs to be run on a machine with the client instance installed for the target environment. This is because we're checking, one, against the database for data that's been migrated. Also, globals, blobs, and globs will be directly inserted into the database. but job definitions, calendar definitions, job types, if those have been defined in R11, and several other components are migrated actually directly through GIL or their respective Autosys utility. So let me finish putting these in. This is also an Oracle environment, and my target AutoServe ID is OSP. Down at the bottom here, you can specify Perl scripts to execute against the jobs that are selected from the source environment. I'm not going to be doing this for the demo today, but you can select any number of Perl scripts that you like, and then the order that they're placed in this box down here is the order that they'll be executed against the jobs when that time comes, and I'll point that out when that happens. So we're going to go ahead and create a package. What this will entail is retrieving the data about the source jobs. This is a tool that's meant to run at an administrative level. It's not meant to run at an end user level. There's someone who's running this and handling the migration. Should be someone who has the authority to see all of the job data. So we're retrieving the jobs. There's only 95 jobs on my source environment that you can see here. It's a relatively small environment. I'm going to go ahead and filter the jobs just for the ones that start with demo. These are the jobs that I want to migrate. All of the jobs are showed in their box child relationship, so you can expand those out. If a child job is selected, automatically the whole box is included within the package. So I'm going to go ahead and actually select all of these as part of my migration package. When we click next to continue with the migration, what's going to happen is all the jobs stream data, their condition statements, and all of the data relevant to that job is going to be analyzed. Any additional jobs up or downstream that are required for the job stream to behave the same way in the target environment as it did in the source will be included. So if job 1 kicks off job 2, but you only selected job 2, job 1 will also be included in this migration package, and you'll be made aware of that on the next panel. So these are all the jobs I want. And we can see on this reference panel, just to continue with the point I was making prior to this, there are 2 jobs here, one here, that were auto-included because jobs that I had selected have conditional dependencies that require them to be included as well. The panel that we see here is a summary screen, essentially of the GIL of all the jobs selected. So this is not necessarily what's going to be migrated. And to make that point, we can see on the side that 3 calendars are referenced by these jobs. I named one of those calendars non-exist to make it perfectly clear. The calendar, while referenced by a job in the source environment that was selected, doesn't actually exist in the source environment. It must have been deleted at some point or never used. This is just making the user aware that this calendar is referenced, but as we'll see later on, no calendar will be created by the name not exist because it did not exist in the source environment. We also have 2 global variables that are referenced, 3 machines, and 3 owners. All these different tabs, while I'm not using them for the migration, anything that shows up in here, as long as it was on the source environment, will be migrated at migration time. A third note is that we will not, if something is already on the target environment, maybe a global variable is already migrated with a previous package, and now your second package that you're going to be migrating also references that global variable, we're not going to overwrite any data that's on the target environment. So only if it existed on the source and does not exist on the target. You will see down here there's this grayed out button, apply scripts. This is where if you selected Perl scripts to be executed, they would be executed. You'll see any changes relative to those Perl scripts appear in the reference summary screen. So if you change the calendar name, for example, and calendar 1 is no longer referenced, it was changed to calendar A, the change will be updated here. The only requirements for the Perl scripts is that one, the same number of jobs that go into the Perl script come out when we parse the results, and 2, we are assuming a one-to-one relationship. So if the first job provided to the script was demo job B20, whatever comes out should be reflective of demo job B20. So those are the only two restrictions when it comes to those scripts. Apart from the auto rep format is what they should expect, and the size, same number of jobs, as well as the first in, first out style of working. So what's going to happen now, I don't have any scripts, so I won't be applying them. You can also undo the scripts. If there was a problem, make a change to your script and reapply the scripts without exiting the tool. I'm going to click next. These are the jobs that I want. What will happen is all the jobs will be syntax checked and sorted based off of any problems or warnings that were detected. That happened relatively quickly. Just for scale, syntax checking right around 100,000 jobs typically takes about 40 seconds to a minute. So it's the amount of time it takes a syntax check does grow with the job set size, but it's a relatively quick process. We can see here on the top there are a couple of tabs. We'll go through those. The All Jobs tab is the same tab that you saw on Job Selection. It just contains all the jobs in their box-child relationship. The second tab is the Task tab. These are all the jobs whose GIL currently would migrate perfectly fine into the target environment. We do auto-fix some of the jobs. Now, I want to be very clear with when it comes to auto-fixing, we will not make any changes that we are not certain will not impact the behaviors. What I mean by that is we won't change job names, or we won't change conditional behavior in an auto-fix. For example, something that's fixed in an auto-fix, we can see here, there's an issue with the run window that we fixed. What it's telling us is that the run window seconds have been removed. So in this R11 environment, this user specified second values, and I just reverted to show the original GIL. The second values aren't actually being used by the source or the target environment, though they were allowed to be inserted into the source environment. So we automatically cut those off for you so that you don't have to fix those. So once again, anything we auto-fix is something that we're absolutely certain that we can change without modifying the behavior. Every auto-fix is supplied to you with that information message, so you can go through and see every single job that was auto-fixed. And if you choose to revert, I use the second button here to revert, and you can revert to a last save if you've been making changes, or to the original GIL. If you choose to revert, that message of what we did to fix the problem is maintained so that you know exactly how to fix your problem. I don't want to save this change because I agree with the change, that the auto-fix that was made, so I'm going to close out of the GIL editor, and I will not be saving. Any job can be selected in the same way to view even jobs that are passed. This warning tab, the warning tab is for jobs whose GIL will migrate, but there was something that we detected that we wanted to make aware. So for the example in here, we have a job who has a condition statement which references a job that wasn't included in the package. Now keep in mind, this is a very important piece of information because, as I mentioned in the beginning, the upgraded system will go through up and downstream and retrieve all of the jobs related to the jobs that were selected. So if a job is not included, that means it didn't exist on the source at all, and chances are this condition statement wasn't impacting the way the user expected, or the job was deleted long ago, whatever it may be. But it's just information that we feel that you need to be aware of as the user before continuing the migration. We can see another one that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a run calendar here that references non-exist as its calendar. Calendar non-exist didn't exist in my source, and therefore it's indicating that to the user. We go into the error tab. These are changes that we discover that will impact the migration. We cannot migrate until these errors are fixed. You can see the next button on the bottom right-hand corner is not available at the moment, and that's because we have these errors. Errors are something that we felt that could not be auto-fixed, and it's something that's for the user to do themselves. So we can select the first job here, and we can see there are a couple errors regarding the start mins and start times attribute. Both start mins and start times require either days a week or run calendar to run, so somehow this job was inserted into the R11 environment without that, that dependency met, as well as you can't have start mins and start times within the same job. It's mutually exclusive. So this would be something that you want to analyze and decide how is this job supposed to be running before continuing with the migration and then making the change. So for the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to remove the one attribute start mins, and I'll add a days of week. Oops. Now, you can see there's a save button here on the left, but I want to check and make sure that the GIL is now valid. So I can check without committing the change by clicking the third button. There was a job warning found. Since I don't specify a date conditions attribute, the target environment assumes that no date condition attribute is equivalent to date conditions : 0, which means that to ignore date condition attributes. So it's just alerting me to that change. And that's fine, so I'll save this. And we can see behind us the tabs have updated. Second job with an error here, we've had some warning messages, and we have an error messages. All the jobs are stacked due to their most severe problem. So if you have a job like this with warnings and errors, it will appear in the error tab until the error is fixed. If you have a job that's auto-fixed and has a warning, it will appear in the warning tab. In this case, the error is that the run calendar and the exclude calendar cannot reference the same calendar. So I'll go ahead and fix that. Whenever we save, we always check. So even if you did not check with the check syntax button, saving will check the syntax before committing the change. And we can see that the problem is fixed. Then there's the already migrated tab. I'm migrating into an empty target environment. So in this case, it's showing 0. But if there are any jobs with the same name as one of the jobs in the source environment already on the target environment, we assume that those jobs are already migrated, or it's something that the user needs to take care of themselves, so we place them in this panel here, but those jobs will not be migrated. As I mentioned, we will not overwrite any data that's already on the target environment that we detect, and that includes jobs. Before I continue with moving on to these last two tabs, there's an export job information button down here that can be used at any time. So they can have been done before I made any changes, in the progress of making changes, at this point where I finish making the changes that I want to commit. This will export the GIL with messages for all of the past jobs, warning jobs, auto-fix jobs, jobs with errors, as well as a CSV file containing all the jobs, their messages, and the attributes that were affected. So you can run this syntax check, export the zip file with all these GIL files with all these messages telling you what we detected the problem was, and then send these out to your application owners and tell them, look at this, tell us what you want to do with this before we migrate, so that you can actually analyze this data first before actually going through with the migration. So I don't need to export these at the moment for the demo, but that is available, and you can export it at any point in time. For the machines, we have 3 machines that were referenced. By default, the legacy types are what is migrated. But if we want to switch to the modern agent type, we have to switch the machine to type A. So you have the ability to select for any machine and switch to that type A type. All of the defaults for these, the modern agent attributes are automatically filled in. You can go through and select and make changes as necessary. You can add a description. Even to the legacy machines, you can add a description as well. And what you see on the screen here will migrate. For the machines, the only thing that we do not allow to change from what we found is the max load and factors, as well as the machine names themselves. If there, as you can see, this is a Unix machine, machine 1. I can only change it to type A. I can't change it to be the legacy Windows types or something unrelated to the machine type I discovered in the source environment. If there was a machine that was referenced that was not, that we could not find a definition for in the source environment, it will be listed as undefined here, and you'll have all of the options available for you to choose. It is very important to note, if you are switching to the Type A machine definition, we can validate the syntax of the agent name and the encryption, that all the values provide us are syntactically correct when it comes to the attributes, but we cannot validate that you actually, the port you provide us with is the actual correct port for that agent. So we'll migrate that will go in, but you have to ensure that the data that you provide is the correct data. Otherwise, you may run into an issue. So we can migrate these just like these with this change. We also list, you can't modify these in any way for the machines. We're much stricter about what you can change with the machines than with the jobs. We also specify the real component machines to the virtuals. So in this case, the virtual 1 machine had a component real machine, a machine 1 that we see in the machine tab. Machine 1 isn't referenced by any job, only virtual 1 is. So if a virtual machine is referenced by a job, all of the real machines are automatically included, and their definitions will be retrieved from the source environment. So that's how you modify machines and jobs. We'll move forward now to the actual migration. This is the last panel you'll be able to, correction, the next panel will be the last panel that you can access if you were in analyze mode. Since we're not in analyze mode, you can't actually migrate. Just gives us a warning about the Type A machine, the same warning I provided you earlier about making sure the attribute data is correct. We do provide the warnings for the jobs that we presented one last time, so the user is aware of all of those warnings. This last panel before the migration panel is just a report panel indicating what other package elements will be migrated. There were no user-defined job types. There were no job blobs or global blobs. There was one calendar referenced on the source environment that will be migrated to the target environment. This is an unusual case, but I do like to show it. If something's referenced that didn't exist on the source but does exist on the target, which is a very unusual scenario, it doesn't happen often, but we do catch that and we do alert the user to ensure that that they have accounted for this accordingly. If a calendar was referenced in the source environment, wasn't existing in the source environment, that job wasn't running. And now if it migrates to the target environment, it would be running. So it's just something we're making the user aware of. And then finally, as I mentioned, the calendar didn't exist in the source environment at all and would need to be manually defined later in the target. Since it didn't exist in the source, we are not going to create it in the target. There were no cycles. We did have one global variable that will be migrated, and just reiterating the same point, the second global variable, var1, did not exist on the source and therefore would need to be manually defined on the target because we're not going to create anything that wasn't on the source. For machines, we have 3 machines that we've created, the 2 real machines and 1 virtual machine. We'll have 3 credentials that will be defined on the target environment, and as I did mention, we do handle the re-encryption. We do not expose the plain text passwords, so we'll handle that conversion for you. These last 2 tabs, while I don't have them being used in the demo, this is what will describe impacted up and downstream extreme external dependencies. So if any jobs in external instances reference those that are being migrated in this package set, we will alert you to that so that you can take accountability for that, and those will display here. And we'll display the source job that is in the package that has the relationship, the dependent external instance, we'll display the autoserve ID for that, and the external job name, and the same for the downstream external dependency. Finally, we have the migration screen. By default, we are set up to migrate jobs on ICE, but you can also migrate to the no exec status. Or if you have a target 11.3.6 SP1 environment, you can migrate with the current status. If you're migrating to 11.3.5 or 11.3.6 environment that hasn't been patched to SP1, you will not have this current status option available since the status attribute didn't exist before SP1. We recommend migrating on ICE first and then taking the jobs off ICE later, but if you do need to migrate with those current statuses, you can. A couple of notes though, and very important, is that the we are not stopping the jobs in the source. You're going to have to account for that, as well as we grab the statuses only once. So if the status changes because the scheduler was running on the source environment after we retrieve that status, that will be unreflected in our migration. So I will migrate with the current status. It's the same warning that I just provided you. There is a note here in the second paragraph that I forgot to mention, which is if the job is in a non-terminal status, starting, restarting, pending machine, running, whatever it may be, we'll migrate that as on hold and make you aware of that so that after the job finishes running, you can then take the job off hold and kick it off as necessary in the target environment. So I'm going to migrate with the current statuses, and we'll start. So the credentials just migrated first, as well as the global variables, the calendars, and machines. You're now doing the jobs. And with the current status migration, how we insert the jobs without them running until after the migration is complete is that we insert them inside a temporary box that was placed on hold. That way none of the jobs inside the box can execute. We set their current statuses using the status attribute. And then after the box was removed, we just refreshed the jobs, which was that last step that you saw. And the migration has completed. We have a migration report, which contains is a combination of all the reports you saw earlier, as well as a status table that indicates exactly the status that was found on the source and then the status migrated. You can see, for example, this job here was migrated as starting, was found as starting, but was migrated as on hold since it's a non-terminal status. This job here had a success status previously, and it was migrated with the success status. All of these reports are available for export through the Export Reports button, as well as all of the GIL and other files that were used during the migration process. So the AutoCal migration file and the machine migration file. They're all available to be exported as a zip file so that you have those available to you. And with that, the migration was completed. So that was the last of what I had. I believe now, are we taking questions on the WebEx? I can't see.
Actually, before we get to the questions, I just want to bring something up real quick. We started doing some 11.36, like a boot camp. It was being called the Workload Warrior training. So the two initial classes have been completed, and we're actually in the process of scheduling about a half dozen more. So you should get either another notification or it'll be available on the education site with the dates and locations for those additional trainings. So if you have any interest, just either contact me or go to the education site. And my email is Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, .woods@ca.com. Thanks.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, if they could just type them in. And hopefully Mark's still on the line if there was some unanswered questions. So we'll give everybody a couple minutes to write these in, and then we'll conclude the meeting. And some of you have been having trouble with the audio. Well, you're not going to hear this, but Len's going to send out the recording. So.
I just saw that comment. I hope that everyone was able to hear me all right.
I was going to say, well, they're not going to hear me when I say there's going to be a recording.
I had the sign language going on the side, so hopefully it's all right. So I'm not seeing any questions.
So there were a couple questions that I see here. Let's see.
So the first one would probably be Beth at 1108. Do you need to use upgrade assistance if you're upgrading from 11.3 SP1 to SP1.
So currently go ahead with that, because I can't see that question. So
yeah, are there many differences in regards to syntax? If used, does AUA need to be run on Windows, even your schedulers run on Linux? So Beth, to answer your question, to go from 11.3 to 11.3.6, it does not require the use of the AUA.
And in fact, with that, currently the Upgrade Assistant only supports sources of 4.5.1 and 11.0. As well as the Upgrade Assistant does require to be on a Windows machine at this time. It does not need to be on the same machine as the scheduler, so you can have a scheduler that's running on whatever you choose, but the Upgrade Assistant does need to be running on Windows at this time.
So the next question came from, let me page up here just to look like Clifton Lewis. And he says, WCC, I would like to have an option where I can run a job standalone and the job will not kick off any successor jobs downstream.
Unless you put them on hold.
Yeah, unless you put them on hold, but that's not what he wants. So we need to, Clifton, I would definitely get it out on ideation as quickly as possible. Again, R12's coming up and we'll be pulling from there. Will the machine-specific encryption keys be part of the migration?
So that's with the Upgrade Assistant, there are two encryption keys that I see questions asked about both, so I'll take care of those. First, with the machine encryption, specific encryption keys, I believe they're talking about the agent key. You can specify that in the Upgrade Assistant, and we will migrate that through Jill. Those will not be exposed when you type those in. I should have showed that in the demo. I did not. So you can, if you're creating the machine definition for the new agent, you can specify the key to agent value inside the Upgrade Assistant. For the owner, for the encryption for the Windows credentials, we will automatically convert those from the old encryption type to the new and insert those into the database directly. So both types of encryption keys are taken care of.
The next one is from Tom Treader. Is the migration tool included with support? Is there a separate fee? It is included with your support.
Right, and there is no fee. It can be downloaded off the product page.
Correct. Is it possible to migrate objects separately? I am thinking in particular about _secure user/passwords.
It's not possible to migrate objects separately, but in regards to the AutoSys secure users and passwords, if that is something that you're looking to do separately, you can reach out to me at Justin, JUSTIN, Hubbard, HUBBARD, @ca.com, and I can help specifically in that regard. But at this time, it's job focused for the Upgrade Assistant, so only data relevant to the jobs will be included and moved forward.
Thank you. And then Clifton Lewis, the education classes, what was the email address, Mike?
I actually just sent him a reply back. It's Michael, MICHAEL .woods, WOODS, @ca.com.
Okay. Is there currently a way to see who was logged on to WCC for 11.3.0 SP1, and that's Mark Jordan? Nope, unfortunately not. If you'll pull down 11.4 WCC, which will work with 11.3 SP1. I can't remember if it tells you the exact users or how long they've been logged in, but there are some new features in 11.4 that will, I believe, cover this for you, Mark.
And actually, there was another question about 11.4 being GA or not.
Yeah, 11.4 is GA, and you can pull it down from the WCC homepage. There's a link to it. The only difference between an 11.3.6 and 11.4 is the application editor. It's not installed in 11.4. We're still working on that, but you will see 11.4 is much more user-friendly and easier to use. But customers wanted it for a monitoring purpose, so we went ahead and provided it early. Steve, for status, does it get discarded after the first time run, or does it stay there for all initial reinserts? I'm assuming that's on AAU.
So it should, I mean, once it's inserted in whatever status you chose, I mean, after it runs, it'll, change to whatever status, starting, running, failure, success, whatever. So it's only for the first time when it gets inserted.
That's correct.
And then from production control at Colgate, we joined the meeting late. How do we access the Upgrade Assistant tool?
So the Upgrade Assistant, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
The Upgrade Assistant tool can be grabbed off the product support page for Workload Automation AE. If you have trouble accessing it, just send me an email and I'll help direct you there. My email, once again, is justin.hubbard@ca.com.
And Lisa Dunaway, Windows 11.4 Go GA. It's there, Lisa. If you have any questions, give me a shout. Will it be recorded and shared with all? Yes, it is. Beth says, thank you. Can we use it for migration from scheduler on Unix to scheduler to a new scheduler on Unix?
So at this time, the Upgrade Assistant, once again, is supporting, you can migrate to between instances as long as the source environment is 4.5.1 or 11.0 and the target environment is 11.3.5 or above. Those are the supported sources and targets at this time.
Okay. I think that's it. Unless my cursor's not working. There we go. That's it. I have no more questions. Well, here comes Stephen. I had a question regarding the new Aura BCP utility for dual event server. Mike mentioned that the new script using data pump was faster. Do we know how much faster? A whole lot faster.
It'll depend on how much data you're moving, but the more data you have, the more performance you'll see, or better increase.
One of the customers took it from what, Mike, an hour and a half to 7 minutes or something like that?
Exactly. Yep. It really has been a phenomenal increase.
Yeah. Steve, to answer your question, some of the customers that test with us, large customers, reported hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes down to 7 to 9 minutes, and some even faster than that.
Yep. And Steve, with the amount of data that you guys keep, you're going to see a really nice improvement.
Okay, so submit. Can I roll back the changes once done?
So are they, I believe they're asking about the Upgrade Assistant. The Upgrade Assistant, once it's migrated successfully, you can't roll back the changes through the Upgrade Assistant. If there's a problem migrating and a job fails to insert, for example, or something else fails to insert, you'll be prompted and asked, do you want to continue or do you want to revert back? And if you want to revert back, those will be completely undone. But once the migration goes through successfully, and this is also part of the reason that that we recommend going on ICE first, a successful migration stays that way, and we don't support undoing the successful migration. And the reason for that is depending on how much time has changed, the job definitions may have changed in the target environment after the migration. There could have been any number of things done that weren't from the Upgrade Assistant, and rolling back may cause more problems. So during the migration itself, you can roll back if there's a problem specifically with the processes during the migration. But after the migration has been successful and the reports have been provided, that's the way it stays.
So Justin, there is a list of all the jobs that were inserted, correct?
That is correct. We will provide a report of every message and every job, calendar, machine, global, and all the other elements that I specified that to the user at migration time of exactly what's provided. The log file as well that you saw of the actual feedback from Jill and from AutoCal that was provided gets saved as well. All these are all this information saved so that if you do run into a problem, you can go back and find all that data, as well as you saw on the last panel, you can export the actual Jill and AutoCal files and all the different files that we used for the migration, so you can see exactly what we did.
Right. So if you did need to, roll back, you'd have at least what was inserted. It would take, a manual effort to change like an insert job to a delete job, for example.
Exactly.
But the information is there for you to use.
Right. All the information about what we've done is there, so you can very easily roll back specific changes manually. But from the upgrade assistance perspective, the migration is completed.
Right. Is that part of the tool itself?
Right.
Okay, I believe that's it, unless there's any additional questions.
Well, thanks everyone, and have a good rest of your day, and thanks to our speakers. You guys did a great job. Thanks again. Goodbye.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.